Hey everybody, welcome back. We have a lot to go over in a short time to do it, so we're going to jump into it. 43.80 we held. If we take a look at this on the hourly and drill into this, we're going to note a couple things. First and foremost, how the heck did we hold here? Not really the level everybody was expecting to hold, but isn't that funny how that works? So we're holding here, and then you can see this little spot, and we're going to wind up drilling into this in a moment. But most important, what we're going to do is we're going to pull back to a 4 hour here for a moment. We're going to get rid of the 200 and we're going to drill into this. And what you're going to notice on the ES are a couple things that I think are absolutely glaring and frankly, you couldn't miss today. And I'm really surprised that it happened this way. So if you use the longer term, you're going to get the wick. If you move it up to get more data points, which is what I would do, because then this wick is what? Rejection. Right? And then you have two spots right here. Let's show you where you've actually touched down on that level. So I think that is a more poignant level. Now we're using the low. Everybody remembers what happened here. That is where we had CPI. So that lines us into this long-term trend. Let's drop this for a minute and let's look at what happened today and where we held. I mean, you can't even make that up. It's pretty staggering how much we held that level. Now, this is the one thing I always say when we talk about head and shoulders and probability. And is it a head and shoulders? Is it not a head and shoulders? Oh, guess what, guys? Today, we did not break the head and shoulders. We bounced off this trend line and we held. Of all the days to do this, I'm surprised that we did it today considering what's happening in the bond market. I think there's some reasoning for this. We're going to really dig into NVDA tonight and what the heck's going on there and what's going on with semis. I feel like there's a lot of moving parts, and it seems to me, after talking to a couple people and reading a couple articles, that there's a little bit more of a shift there than I realized, and I think more than the street realizes, and we're going to dig into this. So you can see ES coming straight across here. That's a 4 hour. Are we getting a failed head and shoulders? I knew that, and I know that about as much as I knew if this was going to be a head and shoulders. You know, if it's a head and shoulders and it doesn't break, is it a head and shoulders? Who knows? But this is where we're at right now, and we have to drill into this and what the heck is this telling us? So a couple things that I think are absolutely glaring about this is just the fact that we couldn't break. And I find it staggering, candidly, that we would come down, undercut, flush everybody here, and then they just rip us back up. And that's exactly, I mean, don't make any bones about it. That's exactly what they did. So this, whether we're using 65 or 70, that's your demarcation line. That is your level. That is your everything. Now, whether or not we have GDP on Thursday, whether Powell screws up on Thursday into a speech, whether PCE is bad, whether they do a government shutdown or they start acting like adults, whatever it is, that's our demarcation line, and that's what we need to focus on. So let's pay attention to that line. Let's not make it less or more than it is, except that this is pretty much everything. Now, in regards to the Nasdaq, if we drill into this, this was just absolutely fascinating. Here you are again, left shoulder, head, shoulder. I want to be clear about this. They usually don't break the first time. Now, what's so fascinating about that is that was the first time. And then we rallied, came again, failed, rallied, came down, and then we're rallying again. Something to think about. And you have these bars that I was watching all day long. Then that's from that 4 o'clock in the morning. And then we just broke it at the end of the day. There's a reason for that. And we're going to get into it here on what I think's going on. I think some people are on the wrong side of the market. I think I was on the wrong side of the market possibly here as well. And especially in one sector. And I'm going to drill into this, and it happens. And the best thing to do is just try to understand exactly what's going on. But if you take a look going straight across, you held that level. So we can see anything we want about our little, lower channel there. There it is. We held. This 14,923, I think you have to look at. The 14,832, I think you have to look at. You have to look at 15. You keep rejecting it. To pretend it doesn't exist and say it's not a level would be silly. I'm assuming if and when you break here, you're going down to here. Now, I find this absolutely fascinating looking at this on a 4 hour and that we didn't break. I really do. It's very rare to see these kinds of patterns and then they don't break. And I'm going to say the same thing again. Usually you don't break the first time. Well, this wasn't the first time. We were here and we tried to break. Let's pull that up. We were here. We rallied to this bar. This is our control bar. And then we couldn't get over. And we should all be able to see that. But we're going to drill into that and we're just going to stare at that and glare at it. And we can all see it. We tried, got matumboed, down another hour, 4 hours passed, matumboed, hit the line again, 1, 2 up. This is supposed to be a falling pattern that cracks down. Not today, they said, and they took us over and closed over that bar. Very different than what happened here. So then we look at this and go, okay, well, Why is this happening? Well, we talked about some of the reason for this on Saturday, why this was going to happen and why we were not going to fall apart. But there's something else underlying here that we're really going to have to dig into in great detail. But we did talk about this and to why this could probably be the case. But if we drill into this on the daily, you can see where we're sitting right there. Drilling this on the hourly, we're going to flip to this 5 and drop it back to an hour. We're going to clean up the vol. And then we're just going to look at this on an hourly chart. You can see where you were on Thursday oversold and you are back over. Now, I'm going to clean up all my 700 lines. We're going to get rid of the 9 for a moment. We're just going to talk price. Okay, anybody see anything interesting here that's going on in the Nasdaq chart? And I know you can't answer, but you can always comment below and then you can tell me that divergences don't work. And I will say that you can tell me gravity doesn't work, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. Doesn't mean that you're obviously going to go up when you have a positive or negative divergence to going down, but to pretend that you don't see them and to pretend that they don't exist or add value is just absolutely silly. And that's something that we have to look at, because when you see them, you want to pay attention to them. Especially you want to pay attention to when you start making higher highs on the RSI, like you're doing here now. That's why I love the market. It's so dynamic. And you can see what's happening right now, okay? That's telegraphing that you're going to test that. Whether or not you do remains to be seen. I usually assess probabilities to this and say you have a higher degree of probability of 50% of testing that line now. That's how I would look at that. You could probably back test what I just said and tell me if I'm right or wrong. Pretty sure I'm right. So if you see this level and you see how this is playing out, I would pay attention to this. I would not sleep on this. If you drill into the 4 hour, we have gone over this ad nauseum on Saturday and said we were at one of the lowest levels that we have ever been. I thought we'd get more of that flush off the open. There I go thinking again, and we know what thinking gets us. And that's just not what happened. We just bounced and we just kept holding in there. Now we're going to get into why that happened and why I think it's happening specifically on the Nasdaq. But I think there's some important distinctions to go over. Number one, the dollar. We're going to drop into the dollar on a 5-minute chart, and I thought this was absolutely fascinating. Do you know that where the high of the day was on the dollar today? The high of the day on the dollar was around, let me highlight this so that we can say it. Do you know what happened then? You had a bond auction around that time. What they are doing is they are selling the 10-year, they are selling the 20, they are selling the 30. They are not caring where they're getting out. You know what they're doing? They're buying the short. We're all looking at this and saying that this must be due to a recession. Maybe it's just bond buyers that don't want to own the long end because they don't know what the heck is going on with the Fed. And they're sick of getting hit with them. So they're just dumping them to get out of long-term debt, and they're buying the short-term debt. That's what it seems like to me. And what happened during that bond auction, it was so aggressive that if you take a look at what happened in this period of time on the dollar, and then you drill into the 10-year, well, look what they did after that. All they did was sell bonds all day long. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Yield goes up, bond prices go down. So the dollar rallies and the yield goes higher because they're just dumping them. They don't want them anymore. That's why, that's the biggest issue and the biggest piece that of this whole trade that I think I was missing candidly. There's TLT. Covering a lot in a very short period of time. I'd rather go broad than deep, even though we're about to go deep in a topic. Just for time's sake, I'm trying to keep these concise when we're doing weekdays, and there's a lot to cover here. So now we're selling down there, and they're selling the long end. They're buying the short end, and that is dropping the dollar. So how did that affect the market today? Is there anything around that period of time that showed us anything similar in the equity markets that would have been of use, or something that we could say, well, isn't that interesting? And then you kind of get that same period of time around here where we kind of sold down, auction happens, and then we start to rally. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Is it a coincidence that the bottom was in the market after the bond market? Yeah, I don't think so either. I think what people are starting to realize is they're just going to keep dumping the long end. I don't think that that's going to change. I think the issue with dumping the long end is going to affect us more in the US and what they're going to do with debt. And I almost think, I was talking to someone about this tonight, I almost think that you might have the investment banks doing it to them on purpose. So that they have to do some kind of QE. It wouldn't be the first time that banks tried to squeeze the Fed into a course of action, and it certainly won't be the last. So I'm wondering if that's what we're dealing with. Either way, this is what I have. That is not pretty. It does not make me feel warm and fuzzy. There are some things here, guys, I have to point out. and I'm going to get rid of these moving averages, and then we're going to dig into NVIDIA and what the heck is going on there. And I have a bunch of news I have to go over. And if someone really understands semiconductors and is actually in the field, if you could comment below on what I'm going to say, because I am not a semiconductor analyst, and we're really going to dive into this in a very short period of time and cover a lot of ground. And I think this is going to be the most important thing that you guys watch probably this week, because it flies directly into what we were thinking, or what I was thinking last Friday on the 5th. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that I didn't really pick it up, all the pieces, until very late in the day. I really didn't pick it up to the end of the day, candidly. But if you look at what's sitting here and you look at how the S&P is sitting there, and I'm going to clean all this off for a minute, and I just want to point this out, and I know it's not done yet. I got it. I know it's not done yet. I know that it could still roll. I got it. But that's starting to develop. Okay, you're starting to get a positive divergence on a neckline on a Head and Shoulders. Don't pay attention to it. Pay attention to it at your own risk. If I look at the 3, the 5, and the 8, and I use these and I roll them with the time, so I know that if you go here and look at the SPY, that you're going to get a different price point than you're going to on the ES. I understand that. Someone brought it up in the room today. This works for me. It doesn't mean it has to work for you. Okay, so when I look at these, and I look at where I'm at, and I look at the last time that I was in a position where we were above all these, I'm out a while. I'm out 2 weeks. And here I am sitting on a key level, and we know where we are in the 4-hour on the ES when we were just here looking at where we are. So I'm showing this. You can see how you're still following it on the 4-hour, still following along. You drop into the daily, get rid of the vol. Let's get rid of the 9, and let's do it. Okay, and you should be able to see what I'm putting down. I understand what people are going to say to me, and they're going to say, well, you just don't know. And you're right, you just don't know. And we have to play that game. But you know what? When I said this last October and everybody said, you can't use that, and I said, no one's going to ring a bell. Okay, all we do is look at the market and analyze what's happening. I don't tell the market's happening. I hate that they have this little navigation system here, especially when I get on my rolls. And you see that right? I don't want to watch this tomorrow, okay? SMCI, the 3's pointing up, the 5's pointing up, you're sitting above the 8. When was the last time that happened? You have to go back here and look at that little nightmare, okay? And it was still going up. Why is this happening? I think that this is happening because I think that the ASML news on CapEx from Taiwan Semi and UMC, I think it was misunderstood. And I'm going to explain that in a moment here. But I think we have to talk about NVIDIA and what's going on here. You came to our trend line. We came in short some of these names like Tesla. And I just want to point this out. That's where you're at, okay? So you are underneath this, are there. You do come here. You are just getting above the 3 for the first time. There's nothing like really redeeming about what I'm about to explain. But what I find so fascinating, let's look at this on the hourly and how you're still fighting that trend line, hit it, rejected, and you're kind of curling up there, aren't you? Everybody knows these patterns, right? Up, 1, 2, 3 down, up. So if you're looking at this and there, I'm not telling you that this is going to be a home run. What I'm trying to put together the pieces of is the news that came out. And I think that this is really very important for us to go over. So Taiwan Semi came out and said the following. They came out and said that they were going to tell ASML to come out and delay the orders. Now, there's something that I was talking to someone about that is actually in this field, and I just want to show you it. Now, you're just going to have to bear with me here because this is all being done very rough. You can always comment below, but I think this is important. So I asked, why are they buying? They came out with a statement today that they're increasing their packaging buying by 30%. And I'm going to show you this in a moment. And this I didn't even know till about 3:15 today. When Goldman came out with a note, I just took a screenshot so you can see it. So I said, what's going on? Can you please explain this to me so I can understand it like I'm 5 years old? And they are not purchasing advanced lithography machines. Advanced lithography machines is ASML. That's why CapEx came in, because they're not purchasing this machine. That's not where the bottleneck is. They need to increase the packaging capacity. That seems to be where they are purchasing now. It would allow them to increase throughput before they even start producing new wafers. ASML machines can make a lot of chips in one shot. Then you need to package them one by one, and that's where the production bottleneck is. Everybody have that. So now we know why ASML dropped. Now we know why CapEx dropped. It's not on demand. That's where I think we're off. Let me rephrase that. That's where I think I'm off. And then I start drilling into some more of this. And let me show you this note. I can show you a clip of this from Goldman's report. So this is what they came out in their research report at 3:15 today. I did not see this. I did not see this until the end of the day. Candidly, I don't read research reports at the end of the day. There were people in the room that saw this earlier, and I did not see this. But this is a big deal. This is a really big deal, and we're going to drill into this. They came out with this news, and then you start reading the tape, and I found it in a couple different places. But really, the crux of it is this. Let me show you this. Now, this is from a newswire. AMD device stock is trading higher Monday with chip makers NVDA, and this came out on one of the feeds around 3:42 today. Taiwan Semiconductor bumping up orders. COWOS packaging equipment influx demand for tech companies like NVIDIA. Taiwan has placed more orders for advanced packaging equipment, a 30% bump. Does that sound like demand is dropping off? No, it does not sound like demand is dropping off. Stay with me because there's two more articles. Don't stay with me. And I know this is rough, but I want to get this out. Taiwan Semi could reach up to 30,000 wafer output in a month, doubling from current production. 30,000 in a month, doubling from current production. Currently, the production stands around 12K. This does not sound like a demand issue as it was what was everybody thinking with ASML and why they were putting those on hold. This starts to make a lot more sense to me. They're ramping up here where the bottleneck is, as that one gentleman explained to me that's actually in this field. That you start putting the pieces of this together, guys, and the semiconductor slump that people think is out there, it's not out there. We just have a bottleneck, guys. I'm just telling you that this is where my head's going with this. And wait till I show you these other articles. But it also talks about Samsung and how Samsung is going to deal with AMD so that they can get moving as well. But look at these other articles that came out around the same time. AI-powered cadence Studio automated circuit optimization across Taiwan Semi's process. New generative design delivers 3x reduction to migration time. This is not my wheelhouse. I understand that what this is saying is they're going to reduce the migration time. This is what hit today as well. So they're not doing this kind of stuff if they don't have demand. This flows allows customers to migrate a wide range of analog designs to Taiwan Semi processing technology. TSMC process nodes supported this flow, and they tell you what they're able to do with it. Many TSMC customers are looking to migrate legacy designs over. So at the same time, this hits. And then we also have this article. This is SNPS. You can see it right here. AI-driven analog design migration flow powered by EDA suite boosts productivity for analog and mixed signals. AI-driven design solutions enable circuit optimization, saving weeks of manual effort while increasing design quality. This is what they're doing. So we're seeing all this being announced at the same day. Does this sound like someone that's ramping up demand because they have demand, or does it sound like somebody that's putting demand on hold? You wouldn't be doing all this. And I think that's an important distinction. So does that mean that ASML is going to go up? No, but I do think it means that demand that we thought might not be there for some of these players might still be there. And when we saw the CapEx cut, we thought that, geez, maybe it might be over. Now, I'm going to focus on that because that's what I think could drive us tomorrow. And where is my head going with this? And this is from somebody that was long the SOX and is no longer long the SOSX after this evening. Where do I think this is going? I think when people start really understanding this, that you could see some movement here. I think you could see some movement in NVIDIA to the upside with something like this. This is not a warm and fuzzy chart, guys. There's nothing redeeming about this. But as this stuff starts to come out, there's a chance that this is nowhere near as bad as we think it is. In other words, that the demand is there and this bottleneck is the issue. Well, if it's a true bottleneck and demand's there, now all of a sudden we have a completely different can of worms than I thought. All of a sudden, AVGO has pricing power. The pricing power that was supposed to go away because nobody wanted these products anymore, which is not the case. All of a sudden, now you understand why Marvel's holding in here. So again, these charts, they're not pretty charts. I got that. But as we know, we use the stool. We have macro, we have fundamental, and we have technical. Okay, now you have a fundamental shift in the way that we were looking at the market, the same way we had on quad witching. To look at this and say that that is not somewhat of a game changer, to me it's a game changer. And it means that names like SMCI that I was waiting for these things to break down, well, all of a sudden now they have pricing power. There's a reason these things are up $1 after hours, guys. I'm not the only one that's connecting the dots like this, but I wanted to get this out. I know it's rough and I know it's fast. I would just say that I would watch these names tomorrow. I don't think that that means you have to rush into the KLACs of the world, the AMETs of the world, the Lam Researches of the world, but I do think that you're going to see the end product, NVIDIA, AMD, SMCI, AVGO. I do think that they could have a fairly decent amount of inflows tomorrow when people start going through this. And I do think that it could also benefit people tomorrow. I couldn't figure this one out for the life of me, why this was holding here. And I'm not calling the bottom on Amazon. I want to be real clear about this. But maybe some of these dots that started dropping, maybe we start seeing a bounce in some of these other names, but I would certainly be focused on how NVIDIA processes this information, how SMCI acts on this information, and how AMD acts on this information. That's it.